All right, so welcome back to Endeavorosity, formerly 3D Club. And so what we're going to be talking about today is super important, and that is measuring. Now, when we first started our construction projects, we just kind of measured as best we could. In other words, we took the different components that we had, the motor and the propeller and the battery pack, and we put them on a piece of cardboard or a piece of cardstock like this, and then we cut that out, and then from this we tried to make adjustments from that. And it was great because a lot of you guys held that base plate, you were able to measure that again, and then you made adjustments so that the wheels could fit on better and some other things, and then you put that into TinkerCad. From TinkerCad, then you made a prototype similar to this one, okay? So you made a prototype and you were able to put the wheels on. So like in this one, the straw would fit here, so the wheels could fit on either side of this. And you were able to make this and make it successfully. And now you got it back, and some of you have even gone to that next step where you've actually put it back together and made a better version of your propeller car, which is awesome. But a lot of you guys struggled with the whole measurement piece. So I wanted to take some time to make sure I went over measurement with you guys so that we don't get a bunch of different responses. You'll see I've videoed probably a dozen different, maybe 10 or a dozen different base plates that you guys created, and they are wildly different in size. And so that's why it's so important. And so I'm gonna go over that with you this morning. I'm gonna show you a few different things for that, all right? It's really helpful to have the measurements right. So let me go over with you how these measurements work. So this is a centimeter ruler, or it's got centimeters on it. And this is gonna be really important for the work you do, all right? So let's take a look here. All right, right here, you'll notice this says millimeters. That means every single one of these lines is a millimeter, okay? So every one of these lines is a millimeter. The big number is a centimeter. The big number is a centimeter. That means that 10 of these little millimeters equals 1 centimeter. When you're putting this into TinkerCad, if it says 1 here, it's actually 10, because TinkerCad records things in millimeters, or you enter it in millimeters, not centimeters. So you'd put a 0 after every single one of these numbers, okay? So for instance, the dimensions of mine were this, okay? So if we look here, you'll see the dimensions of mine were 80 by 120, all right? So 80 by 120 means that it was actually, it looks like 8 by 12, 8 by 12, all right? And let me show you that with the actual piece, all right? All right, so the actual piece looked like this, okay? And when I made it, I actually measured this out on paper or on this cardstock. I measured it out to 80, or take a look here. If you look right here, it says 8, right? So 8 is actually equal to 80. So I wrote down 80 millimeters long, and 120 meters, or 120 millimeters, sorry, 120 millimeters long, which looks like a 12, all right? So that will look like a 12 up here. So where it says 8 and 12, now if it's in between, so the big marks right here are in between, this would be like 8.5, because it's 8 whole centimeters, or this would be 85 millimeters, 85 millimeters. Remember, we're always entering in millimeters, all right? So now that I have this, and then each one of these little pieces here that I cut out, what I did in TinkerCad is I made a hole that was a square, a hole that was a square that was 1 centimeter. So each one of these is 1 centimeter. Now, yours is probably different, and that's fine. But when you have these gigantic ones and you have these little tiny ones, it's gonna be really hard to put things like our motor housing into it. It's going to be hard to fit the battery pack into it. And later on, we're going to be incorporating a switch and some other elements as well. So it's really important that as you do this, you follow along carefully. Now, once I have these set, and the last measurement I had was I measured this at 3 millimeters, not 3 all the way up to here, but 3, which is really small. So the next piece I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to TinkerCad, and I'm going to show you how I enter this into TinkerCad so that you're able to make something like this, but for yours, okay? Or at least this base plate part, right? This base plate. So if you're still on step 1, it's all about the measurements of this base plate. All right, so here we are in TinkerCAD. You'll notice I have a nice blank work plane. I'm going to go over here to the rectangular prism, which is going to be really important. And I'm going to drag one of these over here. Now, don't get caught up in the colors. You can change colors whenever you want. And of course, when I print them, I only usually use one of the colors that I have inside my 3D printer system. So don't worry about the color at all, because it won't print to that color, as most of you noticed. But right here, you'll see that there's 3 important things. It says length, width, and height. That's all that's going to be important for this. We talked about on the paper what I wanted my length to be. And I wanted my length to be 120. And you'll notice it goes ahead and adjusts this to exactly 120. Then I wanted my width to be 80. So I type in 80, I hit enter, and now it's 80. Now you'll notice this is extremely thick because, of course, the height is still 20. So I want to change my height to 3. Now you'll see there's a nice flat plane that we can work with here in TinkerCAD that looks similar to what we did before. The second piece that a lot of you were struggling with was actually making holes in this. So I'm going to go over that really carefully now. And you'll notice I've chosen this because whenever you have this stripe shape as opposed to a solid shape, that means that it's a hole. But you can always make something a hole later on, and I place it right there. Now, as I talked about before, each one of my holes for my base plate was 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the height taller. In fact, I'm probably going to make the height something like 8, because I want to make sure that it cuts all the way through my shape. Although I don't need to make it 8, I want to see where that is. And I'm going to make the length 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter, which is 10 millimeters. 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, all right? That's really important. So I'm going to say 10, enter, and my width is 10, enter. And like I said, I was leaving it taller so that I can see it sticking out when I actually do the cutting. Now, the other piece that's going to be important for this, I'm going to go ahead and do it like a much more top view here. And I'm going to take this cube and I'm going to move it down here. The other thing we're able to do is do measurement again. So I'm going to take a ruler, and I'm going to take this ruler, I'm going to put it right here on the edge. Now, that being on the edge will show me how far away I am from things. Okay, so if I were to put something here, okay, it's going to show me how far away this is. So I'm going to put this right here on the edge. Okay, so it's showing me that I'm 5 millimeters from the edge. Okay, I'm 5 millimeters from the edge. So on my design, if I go back and I measure my design, let's see if you can see this here. On my design, I'm going to use the centimeters portion. And if I measure that, how far away from the edge was that actual piece? Let's see if we can see this here. The camera, right? Here we go. It looks like it's 1 centimeter, about 1 centimeter away from the edge. 1 centimeter from the edge, right? So instead of 5 centimeters, I'm going to make that 1 centimeter from the edge, okay? 1 centimeter, which is once again 10 millimeters. So that is this line. This little line here is the 5 millimeters. I need to be at the 10 millimeter point, okay? And then I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to stay right there. But here's the other cool thing I can do. I can use Control-C. That's the button that says CTRL. Hold that down, press C, and then I can press CTRL, the control again, and Control V, and it makes a brand new one of those shapes exactly the same shape and dimensions as before, and I can line that up exactly with this one. Okay, so look, if you look over here on this side, it'll tell me how far away I am from the edge. The green line shows me how far away I am from the edge. Now, I do want to, I don't want to do that. If I make a mistake, I press Control Z, that undoes. If you look at this side, you'll notice that it's lined up right there with the edge. And you can see it invisible over there. And you can see it invisible over there. All right, so now you saw in my shape that I did this several times, right? So I can do Control V again, and then there's another one. I can line it up with this one. Those guidelines are really nice, okay? I can see how far away I am. So right here, now this is another 5, 10 away. So I can hit Enter. I can put that right there. I can do another one for the other side. And remember, I always want to come in and check to see, is this lining up the way I want? And sometimes I misplace something and I have to go back in and fix it, all right? I have to go back in and I have to fix that, all right? So this one is, when I click on this, I can see how far away it is. It's 30 away because this is 10, 20, 30. So I'm right in the right spot. And I'm going to place that there. Now, without making the whole thing, I can double check to make sure. Remember, whenever you measure something, you want to double check to make sure. I can see they're lined up. I can see that's lined up. And why don't I go ahead and make one more? Control V. There we go. Another one goes right on top of it. And I can place it right here. I move it up so it's even with the other ones, right? And then I let it go. And I can see that, once again, remember, you always want to check to see, is it lined up right? Oh, yep, it's lined up right. And these are lined up. I can always click here and see if these lines kind of line up. Give myself nice lines there. Yep. So now here what I'm going to do, because you're going to want to do that on the top too. If you're building something that looks like mine, you do that on the other side. So you'd have to switch your ruler to the other side, which is totally fine. You would change your view over to here, and you can do that on the other side over here, right? But I'm just going to show you how then we take this and make it into a shape that can be printed. So this is, once again, I'm going to hold down CTRL, which is Control. Hold it down and then press A. That means I have selected all. CTRL A is Control All. And then I'm going to use this little function right here, which is going to group them. And look at that. Because I had holes going through my main panel, that means that I grouped that shape together. All right? That is how you do it, and that's how you do it to measurements, right? So now we have clean measurements, and that's the most important part of what we're talking about, all right? So hopefully you figured something out from what we did today, and hopefully that'll be really great for you making your base plate so that you can move into that greenhorn status, which of course is our first level. You guys have done a great job of inventing. I really hope to be printing out a lot of these base plates so that we can make improvements from it. All right, happy building.